Walk into any newsroom today and you're met with a wall of high-decibel chaos. We live inside a 24-hour national media loop designed to keep the pulse high and the focus narrow. When every headline centers on multi-trillion-dollar federal machines, the individual feels small. It creates a sense that personal agency has been lost in the noise of the national apparatus. This relentless focus on the nation's capital breeds the monarch-worship mindset. It's a psychological trap where citizens treat elected officials as if they were sitting on a throne, waiting for federal decrees to fix the friction of their daily lives. This dependency stands in direct opposition to the independence required in a true republic. A self-governing society relies on citizens who take ownership of their own territory, rather than looking upward for a savior. The modern feeling of helplessness stems from a specific psychological delusion, the monolith delusion. The generation that founded the United States had just finished a war against a centralized crown. They had no intention of building a domestic version of the system they fought to shatter. They didn't design an empire, they designed a federation. This was a legally bound partnership between independent, sovereign states. Under this blueprint, the federal government was confined to a very small box of explicitly enumerated powers. Its jurisdiction was restricted to the few things states couldn't do alone: national defense, foreign commerce, and a stable currency. In this system, the federal government was the agent of the states, not their master. It was a tool created for specific, limited tasks, while the bulk of the power remained local. Historically, the United States was spoken of in the plural. It was a collection of distinct, self-governing societies, making our modern singular empire a violation of the foundational design. Alexander Hamilton and James Madison described this architecture as more than just a preference for local rule. They saw it as a containment system. They understood that local populations know their own needs and economies far better than a distant bureaucracy. But they also built this way for security. If one state's government became corrupt or tyrannical, the other sovereign states were designed to act as independent fortresses. These structural boundaries were meant to contain political rot, preventing it from consuming the rest of the nation. True national survival relies on these independent, self-governing firewalls. The shift from a plural federation to a centralized monolith required a long-term change in how Americans view their own power. A centralized ruling class discovered that citizens anchored in local self-reliance are incredibly difficult to govern or control. To expand, they had to move the citizens' focus away from home. This centralization occurred as the state offered national security and subsidized ease, effectively buying back the leverage once held by local communities. Generations were trained to ignore their local town halls and outsource their critical thinking to the theater of national politics. This produced a state of artificial paralysis, where the public came to believe that resisting centralized mandates is futile. The federal monolith is a psychological illusion. It possesses authority only if citizens willingly surrender their minds to it. Breaking the chains of modern overreach does not require winning the political game in Washington. It requires refusing to play that game. Real leverage exists at the neighborhood level. It is found in town meetings, school boards, and city councils, where individual voices still carry weight. Reclaiming that power requires radical self-reliance. It means building economic and social engines in our own lives that a distant bureaucracy cannot turn off. When we reclaim our intellect and build sovereignty at home, we become ungovernable by tyranny. That is how we restore the republic.